Do you know the Microsoft executive that once went, developers, 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 developers. Yeah, okay, that was a pretty terrible impression, but I'm going to be mentioning this guy in the videos, so if you know his name, let me know down below in the comments. Hey everybody, Bloodman Bobby here. So in the year 2021, Xbox will celebrate its 20th anniversary. That's right, the original Xbox came out in November 2001. We can't call it the Xbox One anymore because as Microsoft has since released a console called the Xbox One. But because of the anniversary, Bloomberg got together with a bunch of members of the team behind the original Xbox and interviewed them. And of the things to come out of the interview, one particularly interesting thing is that they said that at one point they asked Nintendo if they wanted to be acquired by Microsoft, but Nintendo basically laughed off the idea. So this is what Team Xbox had to say about their meeting with Nintendo. So Bob McBreen, the head of business development, said, quote, "The first company we reached out to buy was EA. They said no thanks. And then Nintendo. And Kevin Backus, who was Microsoft's director of third-party relations at the time, said, Steve, referring to Steve Ballmer, who was president of Microsoft at the time, made us go meet with Nintendo to see if they would consider being acquired. They just laughed their asses off. Like, imagine an hour of somebody just laughing at you. That was kind of how the meeting went." And McBreen said, "We actually had Nintendo in our building in January 2000 to work through the details of a joint venture where we gave them all the technical specs of Xbox. The pitch was their hardware stunk, and compared to Sony PlayStation, it did. So the idea was, listen, you're much better at the game portions of it with Mario and all that stuff. Why don't you let us take care of the hardware?" But it didn't work out. And then Ballmer said, "I remember loving their content." And chairman of Nintendo of America at the time, Howard Lincoln, said, "Nintendo does not talk about confidential discussions with other companies. And in any event, nothing came of these discussions." So what I think Microsoft was getting at is that if they were meeting Nintendo around the year 2000, that would have been in the middle of the Nintendo 64's life cycle and right before the GameCube was about to come out. The GameCube was also released in November 2001. And what I think Microsoft was getting at was that at the time, the Nintendo 64 wasn't selling that well. Still a great system. I really enjoy playing N64 games like the original Super Smash Bros. And Sin and Punishment myself. But in terms of sales, it wasn't getting close to the original Sony PlayStation's lead. And also, the original N64 wasn't really considered very developer-friendly, especially compared to the original Sony PlayStation with things like how the N64 used cartridges, while the original PlayStation used CDs and such and such. So what I think Microsoft was getting at was they were telling Nintendo, hey, you're not doing super hot right now. Why don't you consider bringing your amazing first-party games over to our upcoming system? I think there were two reasons why Nintendo didn't take the deal. The first is that even when Nintendo's struggling, they have a tendency of being like super confident in their hardware business, at times even overconfident in certain aspects, and I think that was one of the reasons they were turning Microsoft down. And I think another reason is because some in the industry were kind of skeptical of Microsoft joining in the console gaming business. Some of the reasons were specific to Microsoft, like monopolistic practices. But the Bloomberg article points out how it's tough for really any company, even major companies like Facebook and Google and Amazon, to approach the gaming business. So I think that was also another reason why Nintendo was skeptical of Microsoft at the time. And I think that if this acquisition went through, it probably would have helped Microsoft, and that they would have gotten a lot of Nintendo's they possibly would have gotten a lot of Nintendo's first-party content onto the original Xbox. Like, just imagine Mario and Zelda on the original Xbox, which I know is sacrilegious to some, but I could see it helping Microsoft in that they would have gotten some established franchises on their new console. Although that being said, and I think it would have been a risky decision if Nintendo were to go through with this acquisition, especially considering that when the original Xbox came out, it sold pretty poorly in Japan. It sold pretty well in North America, but in Japan it was kind of considered a sales flop. And I've heard that a lot of Japanese consumers were turned off by the original Xbox's really bulky appearance and the really huge Duke controllers. To play devil's advocate, maybe it could have, brought some, consumers from Japan over to the original Xbox if they saw that, hey, Mario and Zelda are going to be on the system. But I think it might have been risky considering the obstacles Microsoft had to go through with the original Xbox. And even ever since Microsoft's Xbox consoles, while they've done well in other parts of the world, they haven't really done super well in Japan and in comparison. So I think it would have been risky from Nintendo's perspective if they were to have gone through with this deal. Now of course, since the deal didn't go through, Microsoft and Nintendo have gone their separate ways, and Microsoft would end up having a lot of success with the Xbox's division, especially with later consoles like the Xbox 360, the Xbox One, and they did a huge turnaround with the Xbox One, especially compared to when it was first announced, and they just released the Xbox Series X and S, and those two systems are really difficult to find. Nintendo would also go on to have their own successes as well with like the Wii, and more recently the Nintendo Switch. Although it would be kind of interesting, what would have happened if this deal went through? Like, would it have gone so far as to Nintendo influencing Xbox consoles? If in an alternate universe would we have seen a system that combines the Switch with the Xbox Series X and S? Maybe, who knows? So let me know what you think of this. I really like looking into video game history, and I think stories like this just show how many ideas were tried throughout gaming history, and not just the things that we see at major events at like E3 or Gamescom. And it just shows just how vast some of these ideas in the gaming industry go, even if they don't really amount to much. So let me know your thoughts on this Bloomberg story down below. What do you think would have happened if Microsoft acquired Nintendo? Would you think that we might have seen like Mario, Zelda, and Kirby on the Xbox Series X and S? Do you think we might even get some kind of mixture of a Nintendo and Microsoft console? Leave all those thoughts down below, and until next time, this has been Blood Moon Bobby, and thank you all for watching. Hi everyone, thanks for watching this Blood Moon Bobby video. Like and share the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel to see more of my videos, and ring the bell to be notified about my latest uploads. Don't forget to follow me on social media for my latest opinions and video updates. I hope to see you next time.